What's going on, podcasters and YouTubers? This is Hav here, one of your hosts from the Real Fan Review, coming out of Long Island, New York. That always makes my voice really raspy when I do that. Today with me, we got my brother B.
What's up, everybody? How you doing?
We got our man in the chair, Al.
How's it going, everybody?
Yes, and no Sanj. Sanj said he might be back for the Wakanda Forever prep, which is next Sunday, where we'll talk about that, or Monday. Nice. We'll see what day we could do it. And then next week after that is our Wakanda Forever review. So tonight, we're going to start the process for Wakanda. Let's get this 2-week setup for this movie. We'll talk about Phase 4 so far, like what we think and our thoughts on Phase 4, which I think has been a little bit kind of a mixed bag of things. But before we do that, we just passed Halloween yesterday. Yesterday, Monday the 31st, was Halloween. It's always fun to talk about like some scary stuff, scary movies, horror movies in general. So let's get a talk there, Al. Tell me something, man. I mean, I know lately I think me and Al have seen a couple of horror movies together, like Halloween Ends. Yeah. Well, we didn't see Halloween Ends, but we saw Halloween Kills Part 2. We saw some other horror movies. There hasn't been a lot. I think what was the last horror movie we saw, Brandon? Was Beast? Was that a horror movie?
Was that a horror movie? We're going to call that a horror movie? It was horrible. I think the last movie we actually saw was Malignant.
Don't even bring that back up. Stop, Brandon. For those listening on the podcast, Brandon is running backwards. Yeah, man. And that was a moment in time last year. Al, what's your thoughts on horror movies in general, man, and the lack thereof?
It's like you said, it is a lack thereof. It's really come down to a handful of really good horror movies. And even with those, you have to hunt for them. Some of them aren't even the big scale movies.
Some of them aren't even horror movies. They're like comedic slashers. Like,
like I think Bodies. I haven't seen it yet, but I heard that was pretty decent.
Right.
I just caught Barbarian, and it's a unique movie. I mean, I know B didn't like it. He gave it a bad, but I liked it. But it does take a certain type of, like, you have to give it a chance.
So now I have to watch Barbarian because it's on HBO Max now.
Yeah. So that's where I caught it. So it's a pretty interesting movie. It's got a good concept. It'll make you think twice now about renting an Airbnb. But
don't do that to me, Al. That's my thing right now. Airbnbs with the kids.
Kid, you may want to watch this movie.
You want to see how many rooms are available in this house.
But I mean, it's even some of the big names are starting to concern me. Like the last
Scream. Scream 6.
That was pretty decent. No, but the ones with the couple that the devil made me do it. The Conjuring.
Okay.
You know, it was good. It scared me. And everything, but it wasn't close to the first few.
No, man.
Oh. So, there wasn't one scene from that movie that I can say, like, oh, this scene got me. No, I mean, I like the overall premise. And one of the things with the Conjurings is that it's based on real stories. I mean, the couple is a real couple in real life that investigated these incidents. Right. So, that always pulls me in because, there's some basis of reality to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, there's no real, like, when you said we were going to talk about horror movies, I'm like, oh, cool. What's a good one I've seen recently?
None.
Yeah, I have to call my wife into the room and be like, yo, what's a good horror movie? Because we always watch them together because my wife's a big horror movie fan as well. So I'm like, what's a good one we've seen recently? And even and she rattled off a few, but it took us like both a little bit of an effort to kind of think of a good one.
I hear you, man. Yeah, even for myself, thinking back when I thought about this question for yesterday, because I thought we might record yesterday, but then, the kids wanted to stay out and have IHOP for dinner too. IHOP, not a sponsor. So
Not yet.
Not yet. I was thinking of like, what horror movie? Because even last night, like my wife goes to bed a little early. So I'm like, all right, what horror movie am I going to watch? Nah, man, I ended up watching DC League of Super Pets. So it's like that was
good.
No, there really wasn't a horror movie I wanted to watch. And then when I think about like great horror movies, they're all in the past. You know, I would love to give Michael Myers another shot with Halloween Ends, but to be real with you guys, I'm probably waiting for that to come out on Redbox or, you know, on demand so I could watch. I think it's on Peacock actually, so I could probably just watch it off of that.
We caught it on there. You can wait.
Yeah, see that? And then like I heard Hellraiser, which went to, I believe it went to Roku or Hulu. So I heard Hellraiser's all right too, but it's like, again, nothing like these motion pictures in the movie theater feelings. I think the last movie that I remember seeing in the movie theaters that really like caught me in a horror movie sense was Insidious. Insidious 1 was kind of like what we're talking about 10 years ago was the last time I remember being in the theater like, oh shit, what am I watching? You know, like this is insane. And, you know, just Insidious was, Jesus, I can't even remember what year that was. I'm going to assume it was about 10 or more years ago.
Probably 10 years ago.
You know, and then again, when I think of horror movie franchises, I think of, you know, Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street, but not even the one with Jack Haley or I forgot the guy who played Rorschach from the Watchmen.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the most recent.
That's the revival.
Right. I believe that they tried to do it and then they did one and that was it.
That was it.
So it's like the horror movies that really stand out to me are The Ring. Definitely the Conjuring movies. They're great. But to be honest with you, I saw all the Conjuring movies at home. I didn't see them in the theaters because I didn't have a great feeling for horror movies anymore. But those movies was good. There's another movie that I saw at home too that was crazy. I think it was called Sinister.
Yeah. The first Sinister was good.
The first Sinister, not the second one. The first one was pretty good. But it's so hard to find. I feel like horror movies has almost turned into what comedies are now. Like there's rarely comedies now, you know. So it's tough, man. How about for you, Brandon? You found it easy to find like a recent horror movie that you liked?
No, you know, that's the biggest problem for me is I actually really like horror movies. And I feel like one of the biggest issues that are happening right now is in the world of streaming, there are so many platforms for movies to go on that people aren't even making movies anymore. I was actually just talking to Mom about this yesterday because she wanted to watch a good horror movie. And everything is episodic now, and that takes away a lot of the elements. Like one of my favorite directors, I think it's Mike Flanagan. He did a show called The Haunting on Hill House, which was a creepy show. It was scary, but it was episodic. So not every episode was scary, but there were some really good episodes. Then he did The Haunting of Bly Manor, which was another 10 episodes. And the story was good, but the scary wasn't there. So then you remember how good The Haunting on Hill House was, and you watch Midnight Mass, which was creepy, good story, not scary. So now we have Midnight Club is his latest one. And so me and Mom were like really about Mike Flanagan. We like his storytelling. And so she watched it before me and she's like, not scary, you know? And so like the thing he's known for making that anthology series about horror is now getting lighter in tone and more about the story. And we all talk about how important story is. Story is very important. But when you're watching a horror, you want horror. And so now on Netflix, if you go to Netflix, you have Midnight Club. You have Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Horror show. So you have all these horror shows and no movies are being made. So before all of this, like you mentioned The Ring. The Ring is like a movie that like changed it. Like that was crazy. And while the sequel sucked and they made that other movie with the boy that meows, I forget the name of that movie.
That meows.
The boy is a ghost.
What are you talking about?
It's the boy is a ghost. They're in Japan and they haunted a house.
Oh,
The Grudge. The Grudge. Where the hand comes through the hair, right? Like he meows, you know. So that was a great movie too. The sequel sucked, right? But it's just like we have all of these great movies that just never took off anywhere. The new Nightmare on Elm Street series never happened. And then I caught myself recently just turning on the other Nightmare of Elm Street, the original. And like I watched the first one and I was like, that's horror. Like that's great. You know, and as cheesy as like it doesn't age well, you know, it's not scary anymore. But you're like, that was good. Like just the whole setup. It got terrible as it went on. Like even like I hate to say, I know this is your favorite, but like Dream Warriors, like that didn't age well. Dream Warriors did not age well. Right? That's the only good scene in the whole movie. That's it. But like the first one, like even though it's not as like crisp anymore, it doesn't catch you the same way. You can still watch it and be like, that's creepy as fuck. Like,
yeah. Oh man, yeah, it's insane. Like, you know, like you said, they try to rebuild or rehash some of these old IPs. Like even Leatherface. I think Leatherface has a movie on Netflix that came out this year that pretty much no one even talked about after it came out. Like it was just nothing great. And again, a lot of these, with all the streaming services, everything's going towards episodic shows. Yeah. So it's like, you know, I remember watching a TV show that was about Edgar Allan Poe with who were the Guardians of the Galaxy trying to steal Kevin Bacon?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So there was an Edgar Allan Poe like crime thriller horror on Channel 5 that I used to watch again. And again, it had its elements, but there's nothing like watching a scary movie. Like I remember, as corny as they are, some of the Paranormal Activity movies. You know, I remember the first one kind of weirded everybody out. And then by the time they got to the fourth or fifth one, it was just like everybody was over it. But that first one, man, was kind of crazy, man.
Oh, yeah. Even like the Blair Witch.
Oh, Blair Witch. Yeah, I remember that one. That's, Jesus, that's 2001. Like
2000. Yeah.
2099.
And I think that's what's hurting a lot of these movies is they're relying on the old tropes, the original horror movies. Everything's a jump scare. You know, there's not much in terms of unique fear aspect. And they're all relying on jump scare now or the humor, you know, like, let's laugh about it. Let's make it a humor that we're all scared. Like they're not making true, like The Exorcist, where it's just straight out, you're going to be scared throughout this movie. No, they're always having to throw in humor or something lighthearted in the movies now. And it's taking away from these truly horror movies. Like the last one I remember seeing was Hereditary. Like that's one of the last, other than the big series, where I went in not thinking it was going to be a horror movie, not knowing what it was really going to be, but just hearing it was a good movie. And then, you know, that movie was, you know, and then Midsommar after that. So there's not that many people looking for these unique, okay, I'm just going to scare them throughout the movie.
Right.
Yeah, I want my anxiety to build, you know?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, now my anxiety is looking at my bank account. So it's just, Jesus. I'm like, how much is the mortgage now? What is the insurance? I'm like, no! Don't open that envelope.
That red letter.
For real, man. Listen, let's just really quickly, if we can, just list off maybe some of our favorite horror movie moments or scenes, because I need to feel that energy from horror movies again, man. And I'll start it off with one of my favorite, you know, scenes in a horror movie it's going to be The Ring, man. The Ring, when it's just, there was a scene where the TV comes on and you see the girl and they're trying not to like watch it or whatever. And dude, as much as it looks crazy and fake, when the girl comes out of the goddamn TV screen and comes after the people, like that was just, that shook me to my core. Like I remember watching it with a friend of mine and she legitly covered her face with a pillow. Like, shout out to Lisa Boogie.
Yeah, right? I was just going to say that was exactly who it was.
She covered her face with a pillow and refused to watch the rest of the movie for the next 10, 15 minutes.
When they open up that closet and they show the person,
damn. With the mouth. Oh, Jesus, yeah. So, you know, that was empowering. You know what? Now I'll give you another one here, and this is from The Conjuring 2. There's a scene where they're like scrolling from left to right, just really quick to show you the room. It's so freaking funny, man, because knowing the scene was going to come because it was in the goddamn commercial, I'm still, because of the music, and when you're watching the movie, you got the headphones on sometimes, or you're just watching it by yourself, and you're kind of like getting into the movie itself. Also, there's a scene where they're panning, showing you all these crosses that are flipping upside down. So you're looking at all the crosses. And then all of a sudden it gets to a point where there's somebody standing over here on this side and they run towards the screen. I was like, ah! And I threw my headphones at the television.
Dude, that was here because it was a kid and it transformed to an adult. I was like, oh my God.
Oh my God, dude. That was insane. So Conjuring 2, man, shout out. You got me. You definitely got me. Shit my pants. So, Conjuring 2. Brandon, how about you, man? Give me like a horror movie or a scene that you really enjoyed. Or
I have to bring it back to Conjuring 2, a scene that scared the shit out of me. And it wasn't even like, I don't know, like it really, I feel like they put it in there just for fun, but just the way it happened scared the shit out of me. It was like when the wife, I think she was like doing laundry or whatever, and some stuff was happening. And so she turns around and a ghost comes up and smacks her in the face. She pimp smacked the shit out of her. But like, it was just the whole fact that she was just there and hit her. And I was like, oh shit. Like it got me. And she just smacked the shit out of her. And the lady was just sitting there like, what the fuck? I was like, what is happening?
Oh my God. How about you, man? You got a favorite scene or a horror moment there?
Well, I got a. Well, if you go, you guys brought up Nightmare on Elm Street. So, for me, when I think back on horror movies, and you go over clips, the one where Johnny Depp gets sucked into the bed and then all the blood comes blurring out. Like, I always think of that scene. Not that it's the most horrific scene, but when you take yourself back to that time, and that's one of the most classic scenes. But thinking of Hereditary, the scene where, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the little girl is in the back seat and she's like, she couldn't breathe for some reason.
She was choking on the nuts. She had an allergy.
Yeah, that's what it was. She couldn't, and she's like, for some reason felt, let me stick my head out the window so that I can breathe. And at that moment, they're driving past a light post, and it.
He kept driving for a second.
You guys are animals. Look at you two laughing.
It was bad. It was real bad. He heard the thump to it. He was like, I'm not going to look back. I'm not going to look back.
And I guess that's what it is. It was like nowadays with these horror movies, because they've done everything, I more look for these scenes that make me say, okay, I'm not looking for, did it scare me? What would I have done? And I think I would have done the same shit. Like, no, I'm not looking back.
I'm not looking back. I'm not looking back.
What I think just happened did not happen.
I actually just recalled, and I don't know if it was a horror. Yeah, I would consider Black Phone a horror movie. Wouldn't you guys consider Black Phone?
Yeah.
So there's a scene in Black Phone where it's pretty much all the kids just pop up in front of the sister who's looking for her brother. I thought that was kind of crazy. And there was even a part where
he was on the phone.
I think one of the ghosts that was like fighting back screamed at the guy, and it just, that freaked me out, the scream. I think he was what he was trying to say, like, I'm not doing this for you, I'm doing this and this, and he got like sucked out of the scene in a split second. That shit freaked me out. But how about for you guys? I mean, something that was not recent, but what about It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2? Anything for you, Al, with those two movies?
I think it was It Chapter 2 where they're grown. And you have Jessica Chastain's character goes to visit her
mom, or no, not the mom, but she went to go visit the apartment she had.
The apartment. Yeah. You see that naked old. Oh man,
that's barbarian.
Kind of like you said, we knew it was coming because it was in the trailer, but when the scene went down and the music and being in forget it. I was like, it got me.
I hear you.
Like, even I had to like look away like for a second.
Dude, I honestly cannot wait for my kids to get older to show them It Chapter 1 and 2, dude. Are you kidding me? It scared the shit out of these kids.
So those movies were great, and I loved the story, and that was the best part for me. It wasn't just scary, it wasn't just creepy. Great story.
Great story too, man. And just a really quick shout out to Smile also. I just saw Smile maybe about 2 weeks ago, but look, I forgot about it already. It had its moments. I wouldn't want to say that it's scary, because there was no part where I really jumped at, except maybe one scene where I think the alarm went off in her apartment or something like that. But there was more grotesque stuff to see in that movie where things were a little bit much on the screen, where you're like, oh God, that's gross, and but no part where I jumped out of my seats and felt like I had to get the fuck out of there. You know what I mean? Like, so.
And I would say too, like, since you brought it up, Black Phone was incredible.
Yeah,
like
the story itself.
That story
incredible.
itself,
yeah,
beautiful. Even though I've seen it before in another life or something, but that story is incredible. I swear, I knew the whole entire movie. I literally knew the whole movie.
That's probably the most scariest part for me. Is that you thought you saw the movie and you never did.
I mean, even I talked to Mom and she was like, "No, we saw that." And I was like, right, the phone wasn't black; it was red. Like, she was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, but like that movie had. It's just like you said, like those elements that just caught you off guard. Was the boy upside down and bleeding out of nowhere? It was the way it used the ghost was not only effective to the story, but effective for the horror. Because it wasn't like an outright horror movie. It was a survival movie that had ghosts. And just the way that they were entangled into the story. Oh, beautiful.
Brilliant, man. Yeah, man. I mean, listen, that's for us regarding the Halloween section, horror section of this podcast today. So I'm curious to know, guys. I mean, listen, we got a bunch of subscribers online and listen to the podcast. Let us know, man. What would you consider like a really good horror moment, horror scene, or even a horror movie that you like? Because listen, I'm looking for to see some horror movies. So give me something to watch. So if you want, leave a comment under the video there on the YouTube, or email us at therealfanreview@gmail.com and let us know your thoughts on some of those horror movies out there. Let's get into now. Let's start the prep for Wakanda Forever a little bit. So we're not going to exactly prep it. So our preps usually, if you look at our list of different podcasts that we put out there, the prep is usually going over like the last few movies of the next part of the movie, or for instance, like the MCU, what's happened before, what could happen in this one. So we'll save that prep for next week's podcast, because Wakanda Forever comes out next Thursday. So we'll do that prep on Sunday or Monday, and we'll talk to you guys about that. But for this episode, let's just put it on to Phase 4 itself, because also Wakanda Forever is ending Phase 4. Now, we've been kind of like wishy-washy in how we feel about Phase 4, because it kind of feels like it's all over the place. I feel like Phase 4 was just, let's introduce a bunch of characters that are not going to play a part in Phase 5 and 6. I'm not used to that kind of storytelling from Marvel with MCU for Phase 1, 2, and 3, because Phase 1, 2, and 3 felt like everything was streamlined, like everything had a purpose and led us to the next thing or the next part. And I feel like this, and I don't know if it's more because of the Disney Plus shows, but it just felt like they just threw everything at us, and it was a little bit much, and some things were good, some things were all right. Al, how about you, man? What's your thoughts so far on Phase 4 and what they're doing, or what they've done at least?
I'm hoping it pays off. Like you said, it felt like they were just throwing everything out there, saying, okay, let's introduce everything so that when we get to Phase 5 and 6, they've already been introduced and we can move forward. So I'm hoping that means 5 and 6 are going to have a lot of quality, like action and stuff filled in these movies, because they've already laid the groundwork for them. Because everything seemed to just be introducing somebody.
Right.
Giving us somebody's backstory. I mean, we got Ms. Marvel. We got, all these shows introducing all these new characters. And that's all I feel like they've been doing is either introducing somebody or hinting that somebody is yet to be introduced. So, I hope it pays off. I hope we're going to get a good Phase 5 and 6, but it's left me just ho-hum so far for Series 4. There's not really been any one short of No Way Home that's really made me go, wow,
right.
I got to see this again. Nothing's really jumped out at me like that. I'm expecting, from what I'm hearing, Wakanda Forever may do that.
Got my fingers crossed, man.
Yeah. And there was one line I heard in the most recent trailer that makes me wonder what's going on, but I guess we can talk about that later. All right. But as a whole, not that I've been disappointed, but I've not been as impressed, like you said, as I have been in the past with their movies.
Yeah, man. And how about you, Brandon? What Phase 4 so far?
I don't know. I'm really iffy on a lot because, like Al said, we got introduced to a lot of characters. We had some iffy movies, like just it wasn't the best representation of what we are used to, and it kind of seems a lot disjointed where I'm used to everything being connected, and I get it, Marvel's in this phase now where everybody knows Marvel and let's introduce all of these Marvel characters and see what we can do with them because Marvel Comics is full of characters, so why not have them available? And so I get it, I understand that at some point 10 years down the line we may not have superhero movies the way that we do now. But I just felt like in this 2-3 year period, it's been a lot of new things that don't work story-wise the way we're used to. A lot of these stories aren't working in general, and so like I'm hoping that Wakanda Forever puts a nice bow on this chapter here and allows Phase 5 and 6 to kind of understand where it needs to go based off where it's been.
Yeah, man. I mean, and it's been confusing again because of a lot of the stuff that they're throwing at us. So let's talk about some of either the question marks or the negatives that we've had about Phase 4 so far before we get into all the positives, because it may sound like we are completely down on Phase 4, but there was a lot of positives to it too. So let's do the little negatives, or the plenty negatives there that we have. So I'll start off with the negatives for the MCU Phase 4 there. There's a lot of stuff that's happening that's not really being fully explained or fully being, I guess, mentioned again. I always bring up the freaking, statue that's of the Eternals that's in the Indian Ocean with the hands sticking out. It's all marbleized right now. No one has brought it up or mentioned it yet. The fact that we keep getting all these like new characters in the background that are not human or not, like, they're not part of the planet. So how do you explain where they are and why they're there? In Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, we have the Minotaur that's in there with a freaking robe on talking. Not explained. In She-Hulk, we have these characters that are that are being represented by either, a lawyer or an attorney, or they're being sued, like the guy who lives forever. Then there's, the fairy, I can kind of understand, the one that can mimic other people who apparently mimic Megan Thee Stallion. I guess they're saying that she's part of the Thor people. I forgot their called. The Asgardians that came down from Asgard. So I see where they're saying some of these people, but then there's people, like I said, that guy, that Mr. Invincible, who was apparently married like 8-9 times in history to different people. We've never heard of him. And I just feel that leaves a little bit of like, dude, where do you get that from? How are you explaining that? So that kind of stuff kind of let me down a little bit. And again, I hope, Wakanda Forever answers some of it, but I don't think it's going to answer any of those things I just mentioned just now.
No, I don't think so.
B, how about you, B? What's some negatives there that you found with the MCU in Phase 4?
This phase was very big on like concepts. So we have Nexus, we have time, we have multiverse, we have alternate realities, we have different like universes that were like Miss Marvel in their realm, right? There was like that, I forget the name of the realm they had. And then you also had in Moon Knight the other realm in which, you have Egyptian gods. And so, and then apparently at the same time we have these Egyptian gods living in this realm, Thor Love and Thunder says all of these gods that you celebrate are just aliens that visit this planet with Zeus and the Greek gods. And so like there's a lot of introduction to all these concepts. And while I feel like we used to get better explanations of how they're possible, we're just getting they exist. Just know they exist.
Deal with it.
Deal with it. Like, especially like time and multiverse.
Right.
Loki's show was invested about time and how it can create multiverses. Right. Mm-hmm. And they drew off of Endgame. But then we just had the multiverse. So then how does time and all of the different pathways. I forget the specific names, but how did that all lead to the different Spider-Men? How did that all lead to the different Doctor Strange? Like how did time and decisions lead to all of those different realities? Like they try to make it seem like one and then introduce Kang. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, multiverse is multiverse. But there's also time and Nexus events. And then incursions.
Other planets.
Yeah, and other planets and incursions, which can be a thing. So it's like, I get why they're doing it, but it's just, it's not connected, And so like, it's just, here, understand it because we said it in this 5-minute explanation. And so it's a thing now. And it's like, okay.
I guess so.
If you say so.
I trust you, Marvel. I trust you, Feige.
Right? Like in Feige we trust. Like, come on.
Dude, that Kevin shit in She-Hulk, just come on. Al, how about yourself, man? What's your thoughts on Phase 4? Something that's like either bothering you or nicking at you. What's bothering you with Phase 4 so far?
Well, it would be that, like what B was saying, there was no, like in the original Infinity Saga, there was an overarching story. The Infinity Stones, that they were going to be, Thanos was trying to put them together to do X. There isn't any of that here. There's no overarching story or theme. Like we were saying, you had gods, you had deities of some kind, you had realms, they were going into all these different things where we were wondering, well, what does that have to do? Why are they introducing this god? Why was Moon Knight brought in? Talking about the Egyptian gods and their realm. Why were they okay? Well, now why are we talking about Greek gods and them and all that in Love and Thunder? Where are we going with this? Only to now be talking about different timelines, and Kang is the big bad guy,
right?
Like, and even with that, if you're saying Wakanda Forever is the last one, then that means Ant-Man is Phase 5,
right?
So, what was your whole point of Phase 4? like, what were we supposed to do?
Multiverse somehow.
But then what was the whole point of gods and introducing them and the followers and the worshipers and this and that and the joke about, there's someone always going to be able to replace you. Like that was, as much as I hated Love and Thunder, that one scene where you had that one god when he was talking to Christian Bale's character saying, oh, what do I care if your people die off? I'll replace you with someone else. There's always somebody to follow, that's willing to follow. Like that would have been a great premise, to have something where there's a big guy, a big bad, whoever that may be, about getting, and imprisoning people or getting them to follow them or something. Like I would have liked something like that, as opposed to now you had all these movies that were dealing with that subject, and now it's for nothing because now we're moving on to timelines and different variations of different people, and we're going to get 3 different Reed Richards. We're going to get 4 Incredible Hulk. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, man, it's been a little bit weird, man. But let's talk about some of the positive from Phase 4 now. Let's get into that, because this is again the start of the multiverse saga, is what they're calling this. Phase 4, 5, and 6, which again, I have high hopes for this stuff. And the one positive is, and I will say this for my Caucasian brothers and sisters out there that are watching us and listening to us speak, I love me some Iron Man. I love me some Captain America. I love me some Bruce Banner. I love me some, Scarlett Johansson as the Black Widow. Johansson. I did it again, huh?
Johansson.
I feel like just been how many years I've been doing that. And Hawkeye and the Hulk, and the Petro, and then Wanda, and I'm like, there's something similar about all 8 of these people. Like
they of the caucus.
Besides Black Panther, thank God. But that's not a realistic world, people. So the one positive not one, there's many positives, but something that's positive about this Phase 4 is honestly the introduction more, besides just Black Panther, is the inclusion of different cultures, different races, different genders, different feelings of different people. Like, shout out to Miss Marvel for taking us to Pakistan. Shout out to the whole, I loved Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the whole aspect of what it means for a Black man to take on the mantle of Captain America when he doesn't feel like people would respect him as Captain America, and how a Black man told him, no one's going to listen to you as Captain America. No one's going to follow you. I thought that was insane and crazy. And again, there was a lot of introduction of things like that, where even freaking Moon Knight, introduction of learning about Egypt and the different characters from that country, from Egypt as well, which is interesting. I felt that I learned a little bit of something. We had different dialects, different languages being shown. Not just, the Wakanda Forever in Africa. We learned about the different countries. The heroes are more expanded now in different locations, different places. And in us being fans and watching these shows religiously, we're learning more about other people, other cultures. Look at even She-Hulk. As much as I did not like She-Hulk, I appreciated they were showing us, hey, this is what females or women go through in general, sometimes with men, and with the thought of what women should do and act like and be like. And this is their take on attacking that. I did appreciate that. Again, was it done well? Nah. But it's still, I appreciated the fact that they were trying to educate a little bit. You know what I mean? And I know people feel like entertainment is not supposed to educate, just supposed to entertain. But hey, man, listen, as long as they can make it relatable, I'm all for it, man. So I guess, again, it was a funny setup, though, right? There's my Caucasian people. And then I say all the characters and you realize like all of them are like, wait a minute. Thank God for Black Panther. And
thank God for Nick Fury.
Nick Fury. Yeah. Because that world is not realistic. So
they're like, you had two roadies. There were two roadies.
Crazy, man. So that's one of my big positives there. Al, how about for you, man? What's a positive for you from the MCU Phase 4?
Would be along those lines. Like, they gave us a more personal story for a lot of these characters. Like, instead of just them and the bad guy going back and forth, there were a lot of, well, how do they interact with their family, their friends? How do they deal with the people that are in their personal lives on that level? So we saw a lot more of that. And it gave us a more, in my opinion, more roundedness to these characters than just the action that they go through on a day-to-day basis. You're not always running. Sometimes you're at home. Well, what do these characters do when they're home? And we got to see a lot more of that. And to the point you make, I like the fact that they're acknowledging not everybody looks the same. Not everybody has the same culture. Not everybody has the same belief system. And I feel they did a good job of showing everybody goes through the same things. We just approach it differently based on our upbringing and backgrounds and cultures. There. Yeah. But it's the same thing. We all have family issues. We all have family drama. We all have insecurities. We all have these things that we're going through. And it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is or what language you speak or what religion you follow. We all deal with them. And it did a good job in several of these shows of showing that as people, we all go through that. So to your point, I like that they, as silly as it sounds, that it's a comic book show or whatever, they were dealing with very real issues. So I like the way they approached it, and they did it in a way so that everybody can absorb it and take it in.
I was taking them to church today, Brandon.
Hit him.
Jesus. How about for you, Brandon, man? Give me some positive MCU Phase 4 for you, man.
I would say for all the bad, there have been some stories that really hit the mark. like WandaVision to start this whole thing off, really.
Yeah.
Realistically, WandaVision, I thought was an incredible show, and it dived into the character in which, unlike Black Widow, like we didn't get to spend a lot of time with Wanda and developing Wanda, and so I was happy that this show got to really develop her as a character and had a really great story to match, and then we had Captain and the Winter Soldier, and that was a great story. That was incredible from start to finish. And, minus the Sharon Carter thing, I'm still not a fan of the whole power broker thing, but like, Loki season 1, even Moon Knight, which was like iffy here and there, but most of the time pretty good, and then we had No Way Home, so in this realm of all of these shows, and Miss Marvel too, I enjoyed Miss Marvel. In this realm of all these shows, a lot of the storytelling was really good, and it came from great sources, great places, and the ability to build off of them is exciting to see where they're going to go with them. Unfortunately, I feel like we had some throwaway stuff, and I like Eternals, like I like Eternals, but I just don't understand what they're going to be doing. You
went too big, Marvel. You went too big on that one.
they tried too hard, and and it was funny because if the release initially, it was going to be Inhumans that they were doing instead of Eternals, and then they did the show and they botched the show, and they said, "Oh, Inhumans isn't gonna take." But I felt like Inhumans actually would have done better than Eternals because there was a better way of introducing this team as opposed to this space robot team who are way bigger than their britches,
Yeah, I got you, man. And then let's talk about something that we always love to talk about is surprises. And in Phase 4, we got a lot of surprises, even though we got a lot of shows that were like, it's mostly good, ended bad, or some movies that were like, yeah, they were okay. But we're used to saying that they're fantastic and great. There were still some surprises in a lot of these shows. So some of the big surprises for me that stood out is going to be, I just had it in my head and I can't think about what it was. But I think one of the big surprises for me was, let me think here now, because I'm thinking of all the things, and I had it in my head just now, and I started talking, and I'm like, no, I don't remember what it was going to say. But surprise that was big, I would have to say, is in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, seeing Reed Richards, the Black Bolt. I was really hoping to see a form of Tony Starks and stuff like that. I thought that was really cool to see them in there. Now, do I think that they used them just to kind of show how strong Wanda is? Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, got it. Yeah, but at the same time, seeing Mr. Fantastic, seeing Black Bolt, it was something really cool and awesome. Seeing the different version of Miss Marvel there. I forgot the character's name. That was pretty cool, seeing the different version of Captain America from I'm forgetting all these people's names, but
Captain Carter,
that was pretty awesome as well. And it's just like Professor X in there, it's all that was pretty awesome to see there. Another big surprise for me, the last episode of Loki season 1, when we all were hoping, we all were thinking it, but we just felt like there's no way in the hell Marvel's going to do it.
After the Mephisto drama?
After all the Mephisto shit that we thought we were going to see in WandaVision, we did get Kang. When that elevator door opened and Kang started speaking and talk, well, it wasn't Kang. It was
He Who Remains.
He Who Remains. But that, it's Jonathan Majors playing a form of Kang. It was just really cool, and to hear and see the background, the story, and you're not going to like my other versions. You know what I mean? Like, that just gets me ready to see Ant-Man and the Quantumania. So I love the surprises of those two. Al, was there any surprise that you got in this one? Because I believe there was a couple of surprises, like Daredevil showed up in Spider-Man No Way Home was a big surprise. What was another surprise?
Well, No Way Home was a good surprise because even though we heard the rumors, these guys are in it. I like, as much as I was hoping those rumors were true, like I wasn't putting a lot of weight behind them.
Shout out to the commercials and the trailers for not ruining it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I was like, yo, there's no way. I said, that's two big actors. You're going to bring them in.
Right.
What's the point? I had all these reasons why it didn't make sense to do it. And so to go into the movie and see that they really did bring them back and did it in a way that worked. And was, seeing the three of them together was funny as anything, and it just made me see what they can do with these movies, and still surprise us. As much as we, even though they're giving us what they want, what we want, and doing all this, as some would say, for fan service,
right?
It's what we want.
I didn't mind it.
Give it to me, please.
Yeah, we're fans for a reason. If the fans are telling you they want something, find a way to do it. I don't understand this whole logic of, you're catering to fan service. That's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
But, and then, like you said, having it go on and to see, all this talk. I was a big proponent for having John Krasinski come in as Reed Richards.
Right.
Like, ever since I saw that first drawing on the internet of him with the suit, I was like, yeah, that's
he looked
Richards.
good, yeah.
So, to hear that, to see him actually play the part, and hear that he, may be coming to actually play it in the movie. I'm hearing some rumors about this guy from The Good Place, maybe playing a variation of him and so forth. So, just seeing these things come out and play out the way, in a way that was better than I could have imagined it, and seeing what we want come to the screen, that was my surprise.
Gotcha, man. Brandon, how about you, man? Your favorite surprise in Phase 4?
I would say my favorite surprise was probably the Kang reveal, because it's like, it was one of those things where like, they're not going to do it. Like, like you could show me all the green and the blues and the purples as you want, but like, they're not going to do it. And then they did. I'm like, oh shit, they did it. Like, they really fucking did it. So like, that was incredible. I'm still a little iffy on this because I'm not sure what they're doing with it, but it was the da-na-na-na-na-na and Miss Marvel. And I was like, shut up. I was like, mutants? I'm like, I was like, how are we doing this? And then I think one of my biggest, it wasn't a surprise, but it was really great to see it happen, was Charlie Cox back in Daredevil in She-Hulk. Just letting us know, like, hey, my project and all these things that are happening, like, we're going to be legit about it. So I'm excited.
Yeah, man.
Especially
a little too smiley, but yeah.
he was a little happy, but I like the little, there was a nod when Jessica had the cell phone. Not Jessica, sorry. She-Hulk had the cell phone, and one of the names was Jessica, and there wasn't a last name, but alphabetically it lined up with Jones. And I was like, oh, should we get Jessica Jones back too? Like, oh, I'd love that.
Luke Cage,
man.
yeah.
I wouldn't mind Luke Cage, Power Man back.
But I'm doing the Iron Fist, though.
Yeah, Iron Fist, you stay the hell away to Iron Fist.
You got to stay back in.
Don't ruin this shit, Iron Fist. Yeah, man. I mean, listen, that's going to be our talk on Phase 4 there, man. How about for you guys out there, man? Tell us either in the comment section of the video, or if you're listening on the podcast, email us at therealfanreview@gmail.com. What was your favorite and your worst part of Phase 4? And are you ready for this to end in Wakanda Forever? And let's get to Phase 5 already. But let's get to Wakanda Forever first. So again, guys, next week, please subscribe to the channel or hit that plus symbol on your podcast play app, because we're going to go over that Wakanda Forever prep, talking about Black Panther, Infinity War, Endgame, everything that has to do with Black Panther. We're going to bring it up again to kind of remind you where we are when we get back to Wakanda. So guys, again, coming out of Long Island, New York, we are the Real Fan Review. Saying goodnight is our man in the chair, Al.
Have a good night, everybody.
Our boy, my brother, your brother, B.
Adios, everybody.
Yes, and myself, Hobbs. And again, thank you guys for listening and for watching. Have a good night. We'll catch you on the next episode again of Wakanda Forever Prep. We'll see you on the next episode. Until next time.